UFC 307 is coming at you in just a couple of days from the Delta Center in Salt Lake City in Utah. Alex Bahia versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. is your main event for the light heavyweight championship. The women's 135-pound title is also on the line. Raquel Rocky Pennington takes on Juliana Pena for that strap. The legend Jose Aldo returns. Kayla Harrison looks to stake her claim towards a title shot at 135 on the main card. Also, Roman Dulidze, Kevin Holland, and a few more on the prelims card. Ian O'Neill here and Sean Sheen. We were due to be joined by Paul Brown too, but I bet the man feels like he's gone 5 rounds with Alex Bahia after a few technical difficulties that we tried to work out together. It didn't come to be. I'm sure he'll be back next week. So unfortunately he can't join us. But Shawnee, we're here. We'll take you through the card. What are the excitement levels for this one, Shawnee? Look, for me personally, I'm a big Alex Bahia fan. Just put him on a card. I'm invested. I don't care who it's against, although we could get into that conversation, I guess, a little bit. But I'm pretty excited just to see him on the card. Look at obviously Jose Aldo. I mean, a bit of MMA nostalgia coming our way with the return of Jose Aldo. Glad he's got his main card slot as well. That kind of avoids another kind of a rant, I'd say, from the two of us. He was scheduled to be on the prelims, but yeah, I'm glad. I don't think the UFC even did the right thing when they were doing that. I think it was more so a fight fell out, and that made sense to do it. But overall, Shawnee, are we looking forward to this one?
Very much so. I saw a lot of people kind of poo-pooing this card a little bit, and the main event and a few of the fights on it. But I'm really looking forward to it. And obviously, we're going to get into the main event. And I'm very strong on the reasons why I like the main event. Obviously, we'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, Aldo being the underdog here is a massive story as well, which obviously we'll touch on. Do you know what? Having the women's bantamweight title fight here, would be like, oh yeah, it's an okay fight, but we all know that this is Amanda Nunes's belt, and it'll probably be Kayla Harrison's belt in a while. But the fact that Kayla is on the card as well makes this fight mean a lot more, because look, let's be honest, we get into the fight, but Kayla is probably going to win an hour earlier. She is going to be there, almost hanging in the shark edge above the like Dom Mysterio above the octagon, and next in line. So that makes that fight even bigger. And as I said, with Aldo being the underdog, Wonderboy coming in being the underdog as well, it could be a big, it could be one of those nights where the old crew hold on to it for another while, or it could be imagine if Khalil Roundtree, Bautista, Kayla Harrison, and Rocky and Buckley were all to win here. Be kind of a new era almost of MMA coming through a little bit. Could be massive. Now that mightn't happen either, but I think we could be served up with some exciting stuff here on Saturday night in Salt Lake City.
Absolutely, Salt Lake City, baby, putting the salt in Lake City. Let's talk about Let's talk about the main event, Shawnee. And before we get into the nitty gritty and the actual matchup itself, let's talk about the overall landscape of the division, because a lot of the narrative this week is surrounding Magomed Ankalaev. People saying he deserves the shot, and I can't argue too much with that. But nor can I argue with the matchup that we have as well. Look, if you're looking for excitement, if you're looking for a stand-up banger, this fight between Alex Bahia and Khalil Roundtree Jr. is one that is going to deliver. Some of those fights that, you're unsure how they're going to play out. Well, we know this is going to deliver one way or another. These two guys like to stand and bang. They have good knockout power. And it's going to be a fascinating striking battle, in my opinion. But let's talk about Ankalaev and that situation real quick before we get into the fight, Johnny. What's your stance on that kind of setup? And do you think it should be Ankalaev? What are you kind of thinking around in that trio at the top of the division?
I think everyone would probably agree it should be Ankalaev. And I think everyone thought it was the obvious next fight, and almost without even thinking. In some divisions you're thinking, is it going to be, is it going to be Adesanya next, or is it going to be Strickland next, or is it going to be Chimaev next? There's a few options. It didn't feel like there was any other option in the 205-pound division apart from him now, and maybe Pereira going back down or something like that. But Khalil Roundtree was like, if you had to pick someone out, like remember when Steve Erceg got picked out, that to me is a little bit like this. He was on a good run. Khalil's even on a better run. Like he deserves a high spot. He deserves this spot, not as much as Ankalaev. But I think I saw someone talking about it a few weeks ago, kind of when it was announced, and they were saying like Ankalaev kind of got an opportunity and he didn't take, and then he got another opportunity, and it was the draw. And you know, there was a few injuries along the way, and maybe not the best performances. And we know we've talked about it so many times, even with people getting signed to the UFC and other things. If you don't give the UFC what they want, look at Mohammed Makayev. If you don't give them what they want, if you know there's a bit of I'm annoyed at the situation, they will absolutely overrun you straight away. They will look past you, they will give it to someone else. And that's okay, we all agree that's not right? And I think that's my thoughts on the situation. My other thought on the other side of the situation is I made a New Year's resolution a few years ago, and it was that if I was given a good fight, I wouldn't complain about it. And this is a fucking good fight. I love this fight an awful lot. Now, do I love it for the reason, like, if they made Pereira versus Ankalaev, I would love it because I think Ankalaev could beat Pereira.
This is good on an excitement level. I think Ankalaev and Bahia, it has meaning in terms that, for Alex Bahia, he answers a lot of the questions that people are having right now. What does he do when he comes against a dominant grappler? I don't think we're going to find out those questions in this fight. But what it does is, if Bahia wins, if Ankalaev does win his scheduled fight, he's supposed to be fighting Rakic in a couple of weeks, I believe. We can give out about it now, but what it does, Shawnee, is it makes that fight even bigger if both of these guys go out and get the win. And, it'll set up a huge fight next year between the two.
Absolutely. And sometimes you need that in a division. And sometimes you need time to let the division grow. Now, as I said, I don't think either of us are saying it's the right decision divisionally in terms of, who deserves it and who has earned it. But you make a good point. If you're to look at it in a positive point of view, I think it probably will do that. Now, you never know, but Pereira's on about going up and going down, and
Well, I was actually going to bring that in as a topic of conversation before we got into the fight from his side. Is he actually came out today when he was questioned at the media day about that, and he seems more kind of steady in staying at light heavyweight right now, not moving down, not moving up. And me, for one, I think that is a good idea. Like, stake your claim, become that dominant champion at 205. And I think a move down to 185 is absolutely ridiculous at this stage of his career. He doesn't need to prove anything down there at all. I would more value a move up for him eventually, but the time is not right to do that now. I think there's a lot of things that he can achieve at 205 as well.
I would tend to agree. And you know what I think as well, just on the fight overall and our opinions on it, sometimes we get taken away too much. And this was kind of why I made that resolution a few years ago. We get taken away too much in like what's right and who's next, rather than the entertainment value and the fun value of it. I know that's maybe not the most sporting thing in the world, but we need to realize as well, this is mixed martial arts, and this is not your normal sport. This is fucking sports entertainment, especially when you're, when you're part of the UFC. And again, I'll say this again: when you give me a good fight, I'll fucking take it. And do you know one thing about this fight, Ian? And maybe we can get into it and how we think it'll go and all that. But I would predict that this fight will go around. Like I would be if this went to the third round, I'd be shocked. Like if this went 4 minutes or 3 minutes or 6 minutes or 8 minutes, maybe, I wouldn't at all be surprised. I think that's how far it'll go. Now, staying up till 7 o'clock in the morning, that's a benefit. But the other side of it as well, like, who doesn't love a fight like that? Like back in the day, like fucking Diaz and Daly, or and maybe not. It won't necessarily be a classic, because I think there might be a little bit of a feeling out process, and then lads will land their shots and stuff. But I do think in the first 5, 7, 8 minutes, we will see these lads land heavy leather on each other, and someone will be knocked out. That's my opinion. I think a lot of people will probably agree with that. That's something to be excited about. That is, at the end of the day, like, I know we watch MMA for lots of different things, and we love, most of the time we get on here, we're talking about a pay-per-view main event. We're talking about a good technical fight and why it's going to be a brilliant technical fight. Look at us a couple of weeks ago talking about Merab and Shawnee and all of that. But I don't think we have to feel bad or we have to shy away from fucking being anxious or looking forward to someone getting knocked the
Yeah,
fuck out, like, you know?
exactly. Like, I like to judge my anticipation on fights and how fighters make me feel. And there's been fighters in the past that scared the absolute living bejesus out of me. Brock Lesnar, Chuck Liddell in his prime, all those scary fighters. And Alex Bahia, he does that. And like, I mean, we've seen a lot of fights, Johnny, and it's, you do become desensitized to a lot of things in comparison to maybe someone who hasn't seen that many fights. But every single time that Alex Bahia shaves that head, walks out, throws off that bow and arrow, shouts down the camera, and marches to the octagon. I mean, I have butterflies in anticipation on what's going to happen, because it's going to be absolutely vicious, and it's going to be absolutely brutal. And I watch a lot of fights with my friends, and there's no greater feeling than watching a fight where you have that collective reaction to an absolutely brutal and stunning knockout. And that's exactly what Alex Bahia has given to us many a time inside the octagon. So how can you not be excited to see that? Now, he's standing right across from a really devastating striker too, who has also been on the given end of some really brutal knockouts too. So I think, your overall view of this fight is absolutely correct, is that we're going to be seeing somebody lying flat out on their back, staring up at the lights, wondering what the hell just happened here. Now let's get into who we actually think that's going to be. Um, you know, Given Khalil Roundtree Jr.'s kind of style, what he brings to the cage, I haven't been trying to figure out what way Alex Bahia can win this fight. I've been trying to figure out how can Khalil Jr. Roundtree Jr. come in and beat a guy that is so technically proficient, understands distance control, and doesn't waste a fucking shot. He doesn't waste a shot, Alex Bahia. You can't go balls to the wall, so you almost have to do what we're suggesting this fight is not going to be, and that's actually kind of fight a reserved, boring fight against Alex Bahia. But I think he has an ability to set traps to draw you out where he can counter you. And, it's just people are so bemused and baffled by kind of how does he do it? It's so good. I don't even understand it in some ways. I just know that I enjoy it, and I just loved seeing it in action. It's like Alex Bahia is just one of the most phenomenal strikers that we've ever seen inside the UFC. And, when you're looking at both of these guys and how they match up, I've been really struggling to find a way of thinking or describing how Khalil is going to get this job done. Do you have any idea how he might do it, Johnny?
It's very, very, very tough. Before we get into the striking part of it, because I think that is probably the most interesting part, I wonder, will he, what do they call it? Occam's razor. Will he just go and fucking wrestle him, like, or will he try to wrestle him?
We've done it every single time we've talked about an Alex Bahia fight. We've said ever since you go back when we've been previewing him against Sean Strickland, against everybody, we said, look, I think it goes without saying the blueprint to beat Alex Bahia is closing the distance and taking him down. Fighters have been struggling to do that. Now, look, he has had some favorable matchup. He hasn't fought a pure grappler as of yet. So I think it's hard to kind of say. It's hard to kind of assess as well. I think Jan Blachowicz, the fact that he drew him close, but he couldn't take him down and dominate, and was really, really telling. And the thing about Alex Bahia's grappling, Shawnee, is that it's very defensive, and it's very orientated towards kind of defensive work, underhooks. Basically, he's not trying to work into a better grounded position. He's working to try and keep this fight on the feet at all costs, and he's done quite well. Like, if you really concentrate on that, if you just concentrate on getting back up, and he has the likes of Glover Teixeira. It's a similar enough style. Look at that Chuck Liddell had as well. It was that defensive wrestling to keep the fight on the feet. And, being around Teixeira, being around John Hackam, and all of those, they've had that blueprint for many years, and they've now projected it onto Alex Bahia. And I think the longer that we give him in there, until his chin goes, I think he's going to get better and better in that realm. So I think the true test will be an Ankalaev test, but I think, if you're Khalil Roundtree Jr. and you're looking at his previous fights and seeing some of the other fighters that he's come up against that maybe would have better credentials in the grappling, I'm not sure you're coming into this fight thinking that you're going to be able to take Alex Bahia down at will, or even if you can close the distance safely, because a lot of other fighters have found out that, trying to close the distance against him isn't a safe thing to try and do.
No, indeed. And that also plays into the point you were saying earlier about kind of staying safe, because what does Pereira do in terms of him staying safe? The fight gets to the ground, he just ties you up and he's like, grand, I'll wait for 3 minutes here. We'll be stood up then when the klaxon goes and I'll fucking knock you out in the feet. That plays into that's him wasting time almost to get to the end of the fight so there isn't a big, something big to finish him. If your game plan is to wait until the end of the fight and don't let anything big land against Pereira, that's you can't do that. It's like Man City in the soccer. It's like, oh, we'll hold them. They're eventually going to score. They're eventually going to land something. You can't go 25 minutes with Alex Pereira. And I'll tell you one thing, Ian. What do we learn from the Adesanya fight, right? I think with both Adesanya fights, when you stop and are passive against Pereira, he will win that fight. And I think that's a big difference. Myself and Harry in a few weeks, shout out Harry, once of the previous show, are going to be doing a speaker's corner on MMA archetypes. And that is as far from a fucking MMA archetype as you could find, right? Someone who does that. And you have to be extremely brave and extremely forthright in your views and how you're going to beat him to not do that. So what did Adesanya do in the first? Like, he won that first fight for 4.5 rounds. He was proactive rather than reactive. He was going on. He was landing shots. He was throwing his shots. Pereira wasn't able to counter the shots that he was throwing. Now we do see Pereira at times, especially against Strickland, which is maybe a more agricultural approach to it, and was able to beat him. But at the second fight, Adesanya came out and he was kind of losing that one because he was less proactive and more reactive. But then when he became proactive, he threw his fucking hands. He won that fight. If you're Khalil Roundtree, and I was just doing the betting show there, and I was talking about this and watching back a little bit to Khalil Roundtree. If you're to say what advantage does Khalil have on the feet, if there is any, I would say Khalil is faster with his combinations. Yes. Now, with the counters and with a one shot, I think Pereira is faster and more powerful. But and the problem with that as well is you could eat one, and you could eat one shot 2 or shot 3 here against Bahia, where he's happily going to be able to take it. Indeed. That's the problem. You draw 6 punch combination, you land 4 of them. He lands 1 and you get knocked out. That's the biggest problem. But also, that's how you win the fight.
Exactly. You have look at it. What's going on in the world. I'm out saying like a dodgy kind of way to describe it, but you have to be very comfortable in being a frontline soldier here. That's what you mean. You have to be a frontline soldier. A frontline soldier needs to probably confront himself that, I'm putting myself in the line of fire here. There's a chance I might not make it out, but you got to fight fire with fire. And that's the predicament that Alex Bahia possesses to all of his opponents. And it's a winning recipe so far, but it's do or die, really, isn't it? That's a kind of simplistic way for a Khalil Roundtree Jr. to kind of handle this fight.
I agree. I wouldn't rule out the wrestling, though, at the same time, right? And the reason I wouldn't is because Khalil Roundtree has thrown, who was at that time that Brian Cody, was it Taggy Fogarty played in the All-Ireland final? We'd never seen him before. Who was it? It was someone like that. Or Shane O'Donnell that time for Clare. Never played before. Next thing he gets 3 goals in the All-Ireland final type of thing. Khalil Roundtree could come out and do something we've never seen before. And he has done it in the past. Remember that time he came over and he was looking like fucking straight out of Bangtow at one stage as well. We'd never seen that out of him before. I think that is something to definitely keep in mind with Khalil Roundtree, and I think if that is to happen, it will be a wrestling approach, and maybe watch this space. But I do, that a possibility. I think the probability here is someone get banged out early. In my opinion, I think it will be poor old Khalil.
just another little side thought that I've been thinking about, and that's the mental battle coming in here. Now, I think there's a mentality monster, is what people like to describe some people, and I would describe Alex Bahia as that, with what he's been through. But on the same end of the stick, Khalil Roundtree has been on his kind of fair share of, he's had fair share of things happen in his life that has strengthened his mentality as well. But you know, being mentally prepared for an occasion like this. You're fighting one of the biggest stars in the UFC. I saw one little clip of him walking by the arena or somewhere like that, where he saw his name on the billboard and saw his face on the billboard, and he was taken back, and he was like a little bit emotional, and we finally made it and all of that kind of stuff. You think that could be a little bit of an issue, that he feels that he's made it already without having had the title strapped around his waist. Because you have to be really mentally strong coming in here against a guy like Alex Bahia. Is that a factor that you would consider at all, Johnny?
Uh, it is. I'd be honest, I don't know Khalil that well. I try not to kind of pay attention to a lot of it. But the bits and pieces I have heard about him is like he had a very kind of tough life, and that the mental.
His dad was murdered when he was 2 years of age. Yeah.
And I think that actually might be a strength for him more
Mm-hmm.
than anything else like that. As you make the point like that, all these things happened. It's how you deal with it. Like that's going to happen to everyone, right? And some people deal with it well, and some people deal with it badly. If you have the ability to deal with it badly, it could actually help you, to motivate you even further, to bring you on. Look, the mental side of it is one of those things, and I've said it so many times down through the years, but we can hear and we can come and we can speculate about it. But someone could wake up on a Saturday morning and they could have a bad day or an off day, or they could get a text from the wrong person, or they could get a text from the right person, and suddenly it's the best day of their life. And that can happen. We all have bad days and good days in life, and some people, if you ever went for a job interview and oh Jesus, that was the best interview I ever did, you might go for another one and go, oh Jesus Christ, that lad didn't like me, or oh, you're one on the left fucking like me, but your man in the middle hated me. It happens, and like these are human beings at the end of the day, and that can play a part in it too. But you'd like to think when the gate is closed, when Herb Dean is in there, that it's all kind of level, and the technique takes over, and whoever has the better of that and the better game plan, and maybe the little bit of luck as well, is going to come out on top.
100%. Well, if we're talking job interviews for Khalil Roundtree Jr., it'll be the toughest interview of his life, with the chance to become the light heavyweight champion of the world. It'd be a fairy tale story, but Alex Bahia is what his nightmares are made of, and I'm very excited to see how that fight goes down on Saturday night. Let's talk co-main event, Shawnee. Raquel Rocky Pennington versus Juliana Pena. I was listening to yourself and Graham on the big podcast this week, kind of discussed this fight. I was kind of leaning on your side of things and thinking that, I think there's ways that Rocky Pennington, I think, the work that she has been doing, take away all of the Amanda Nunes stuff right now, because Nunes isn't there right now. And I do understand what you're saying about that, but she's not there right now. And what Rocky Pennington has done is, she's won the title. She's came the long road to do that. And I think she's kind of been underappreciated a little bit because of that. Whereas Juliana Pena is coming in very outspoken, this, that, and the other, has the win over Amanda Nunes, everything like that. Obviously lost the rematch. But I was leaning on your side of things. I think what everyone is in agreement with is that we know that the main event is probably going to be short. The co-main event is probably going to be a long fight. It's probably going to be drawn out. And it's probably going to go all 5 rounds here. But I really think that Rocky Pennington does have the advantage, whereas that she's just technically tight everywhere. Good takedown defense, a really, really solid and underrated jab, I feel, for Rocky Pennington here. And I think that's going to be the deal breaker in this fight. Who, like, Juliana Pena is wild on the feet. She has power, but she's very wild. She swings wide. And that's just a tailor made for you to come in and stop all of those attacks with the jab. I think Rocky Pennington is going to be strong in the clinch. She's going to be strong in her takedown defense. And the more and more I think about this fight, the more and more I really think it's Rocky Pennington's fight to lose. And I'm curious to hear what you think.
I think exactly the same. I was surprised she wasn't a bigger favorite, to be honest. And I do agree that this fight is going to go long as well. This is funny, right? So I often I go on to Sherdog here, the premier records keeper in mixed martial arts, and I sometimes I like to use throw the stat, but I kind of manipulate it a little bit. And I'll give you an example, right? So I'll be like, right, so this guy has his record is 20-10 and he's 15 knockouts. So instead of saying he's 15 knockouts in 30 fights, right? I go, he's won 20 fights and 15 of them have been knockouts. So, it's a way bigger percentage, right? To do that with Raquel Pennington, but to kind of give it to you straight, Raquel Pennington has won 16 fights, right? 16 wins, and she's gone to decision 17 times. That is an awful lot of decisions in a career, in an awful lot of decisions to go to. And the point I'll make there is I'll throw another few stats at you, right? 2024, Juliana Pena, 0 fights so far. 2023, 0 fights. 2022, 1. 2021 twice, 2020 1, 2019 1, 2018 0, 2017 1, 2016 1. She barely fights. She's had 10 fights in the last 10 years. And you look at Rocky Pennington, she's got her last few fights, decision, second round, decision, 17 decisions. She is used to fighting. She's used to being in there. She's used to going long. And if this fight goes long, it's definitely going to suit Rocky Pennington for me. And usually, if you're looking at like a striker versus a grappler matchup, you'd probably say the opposite. But I don't think that's the case here. I think Juliana Pena beating Amanda Nunes was an absolute aberration. She was, very lucky to be the one that was there that night, and very to give her credit, a lot of people, if they were there that night, they still wouldn't have won. So she deserves absolute credit for it. But she never would have won if Amanda Nunes didn't turn up the way she did, right? Let's be honest here. And Juliana Pena is not a great fighter. She probably should have never been a champion. You could say the same about Raquel Pennington, but I think she is probably the best of the best, aside from Nunes, when she left, and before Kayla Harrison came. I don't think you can say the same about Juliana Pena. I think she'd probably, here's my prediction, afterwards she'd say she was injured. And Rocky Pennington.
Afterwards she'd say that I did my best. I was at 100%, no excuses. But I did have an injury, and that's what they all do. To maybe round off this fight, and there's not too much analysis that we can kind of do on this, to be honest. I think, Pena's going to try and take her down. I think Pennington is going to jab her away. I think she's going to keep that distance control with her jab. I think she's going to be strong enough in the clinch, like I said, and in the takedowns to kind of take away the grappling advantage that Juliana has on paper. And it could be, to quote Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit, it could be Juliana Pena, her mouth writing checks that her ass can't cash in this co-main event. And we shall move on. Go ahead.
I'll throw one last thing out at you, right? In the last 10 years, these are the people who've beaten Rocky. Holly Holm twice, Jermaine Durandamy, Amanda Nunes. She's never lost to a wrestler in 10 years. Never.
Prime Andy Hickey stats coming at us there from Shawnee Sheen. I love it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Look at, we'll talk about Kayla Harrison really, but I think that fight is kind of the tee up for Kayla Harrison if she does get the win over Ketlin Vieira. Let's talk Jose Aldo versus Mario Batista next. What are we doing with Jose Aldo at this stage in his career? What do the UFC want to do with Jose Aldo, in your opinion, at this stage of his career?
I'll tell you what, Ian, I have no fucking idea. Why are they doing this?
It appears to me that they want to keep him as a gatekeeper. You know what I mean? The fact that you had one fight left on his deal, it's understandable you throw him in there against Jonathan Martinez.
Yes.
Martinez, he gets the win, he gets all of Jose Aldo's hype, and then the UFC go and market him. Since that fight, which Jose Aldo won by unanimous decision rather easily too, Jose Aldo has signed on a new contract to the UFC. So here we are with not a move up, not a move down, but a move straight across, in my opinion, in levels of opponent for Jose Aldo. And UFC looking for another opportunity, in my opinion, to try and build Mario Batista's name off of Jose Aldo's legendary. What do you think?
I would tend to agree, but why fucking Mario Batista?
I don't know.
Why him? Why pick out someone? Pick out fucking Umar Nurmagomedov or someone and try him in there with Jose. It's a bizarre one to me. it's also bizarre. Jose Aldo is the underdog here in the betting lines.
Again.
I don't know. I can't get my head around this. And so sometimes we look at those bet lines and we see Jose Aldo and we're like, serious unk vibes there. We're like, oh, we're old and this lad used to be good. He's going to be over there. This Mario Batista is just a better guy. I went and watched 3 or 4 Mario Batista fights, 2 in full, and I'll tell you what, I don't see it. Mario Batista is a good fighter. How the fuck is he going to beat Jose Aldo? Right? He went out in his last fight against Ricky Simon, and he kind of fought him on the feet in like a slow, like if you were trying to do an impression of Jose Aldo type of thing and did it badly. And in these other fights, he takes lads down and submits them. Well, you're not fucking taking down Jose Aldo. I don't see how.
And you're not going to outstrike him either. It's like you're in there, 32-8 now for Jose Aldo, Shawnee, and the man knows how to win fights, and he knows how to win fights all day long, and even in his sleep at this level, in my opinion, even at the latter stages of his career. I love the fact that we're able to talk about Jose Aldo like this at this stage of his career. He's 38 years of age right now, and defying all logic for a kind of a guy who's fighting at 135. What have we talked about time and time again? Once you hit that threshold of 35, things start going downhill for you. And I mean, the only blip in the radar is a unanimous decision loss to the current champion in the division in the last 4 years. That's pretty fucking impressive from Jose Aldo.
Yeah, and like he came back in the last fight after being boxing for a while, and I thought he looked better than he did.
Boxing's looked unbelievable it was crazy. Like but of course, you're in with guys who are going to complement that style too, though.
Yes, the one thing I put like you say that, but then why is he an underdog? And we're about in agreement. The one
because
thing
we're waiting for
that
moment where he suddenly looks old. It's going to happen eventually. Yeah.
Will it be against fighter number B? B42 on card 37 of year 24. No. Jose Aldo's winning this fight. Fuck what you think. Plus 120. Put your house in it. Remortgage the house. Double your money. Job done.
That's it. There you go. Thank us later. Jose Aldo.
Please bet responsibly.
Jose Aldo, it's great to see him back though. I'm delighted he's still doing the damn thing at this late stage of his career. Still has the hunger too. You can see he still has the hunger to do it. And sometimes with those older fighters, it's that fire, it's that fizzle that burns out, and that kind of leads you down a rocky road of decline. But we haven't seen it yet with Jose Aldo. Will we see it Saturday night? That
Juliana Pena might have a rocky road, and
she surely might. I should have used that in the co-main event for sure. But the rocky road to Salt Lake City. Let's talk Kayla Harrison, Ketlen Vieira, 135. The palate cleanser for the title fight, I believe, on Saturday night. Kayla Harrison looked unbelievable in her last fight when she made her UFC debut. Has a tougher test here against Ketlen Vieira, but one that you would have to believe that she can go out there and get the job done again. A lot of talk, Shawnee, was the weight cut, how she would look after the weight cut. She looked fantastic against Holly Holm. Now, I begged the question at that time is, okay, you can get down to that weight, but can you maintain getting down to that weight? Which, getting down to that 135 for a big woman like Kayla Harrison is difficult, but maintaining that is very difficult as well. And we're going to kind of see and put that to the test against Ketlen Vieira here on Saturday night, Johnny.
Yes, and also I heard her saying today that because there is a title fight in this, she actually wants, she doesn't want to get the 136, she wants to get the 135. So if someone falls out of that, she can find her way in there. So that's, not a massive thing, but another thing to add to it for someone who is struggling. And honestly, that wasn't something I thought of, but I'm glad you brought it up, because it's definitely, a point. We see it with people who, struggle to make weight. The length of time between fights is an issue, but also maintaining that, even if it is, you have your 14 weeks or 15 weeks or whatever, is a big part of it. And like, that's not just how you'll show up and look like. That's like the ability to get training in and the ability to be sharp for a long period, to prepare properly as well. So that's a massive thing that you can't discount. My thoughts in general in this fight are how, like, if you're to think about Ketlen Vieira in the past, how does Ketlen Vieira win fights? Like she kind of, and maybe I'm wrong to think this, right? But I think she's stronger and bigger and hulkier than a lot of her opponents. You know,
Well,
she
but she
pushes them,
bullies
bullies them. Yeah. She's not fucking bullying Kayla Harrison, I'll tell you that. Like, Kayla Harrison obviously fought at 155. She's big, she's strong. She's going to probably be bigger than Vieira physically in there on Saturday night. Like, if Kenton Vieira could go out and maybe try to jab her up and punch her up and so that's not going to work. Like, I think it worked at times for Pacheco because she is kind of a smaller and faster and talented striker, you know, and Caitlin Vieira is not that. If she tries to get into a clinch with Kayla Harrison, she's going to be putting her back and she's probably going to be finished. And yeah, it's a good test in that it'll prove Kayla Harrison can do it against someone who has fought to a certain level in the UFC. Now, maybe she can't, right? Maybe she can't. I was looking through her record. She hasn't fought anyone like apart from Pacheco and Holly Holm. Never really fought anyone great, Aspen lad. You know, maybe she gets to a certain level and she can't make it past that level. I don't think so. I firmly don't think. I think she's going to walk through Pennington probably as well. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if Kayla Harrison doesn't make a statement here. If she doesn't take her down and finish her, I think she's going to submit her plus 350 submission. Flyer of the week. Boom.
Boom, get on that straight away. In the opening fight on the main card, Roman Dolidze versus Kevin Holland. Obviously, Kevin Holland was supposed to be fighting Chris Curtis here. Dolidze coming in on short notice. I mean, I don't know. I think we've seen so much of Kevin Holland and getting fucking sick of looking at him on cards, and you know what I mean? It's the same thing. He's going to go in there and talk the talk, and he's going to look all right on the feet, and then Dolidze is going to grapple him down, and he's going to be spending most of the fight, I think, on his back, trying to get butterfly hooks in and failing to do so to get back up to his feet and probably eat a couple of shots here, Shawnee. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, you actually are you are right, actually. Although I just did the fucking betting show and I never said that. I said the Lids is just gonna kind of box him up. But yeah, on second thought, I think you actually are right because he did that in a recent fight, didn't he? Do you know what I said on that show as well about Kevin Holland? And I think you'll agree with this because we were at one stage we were both kind of on the Kevin Holland.
I was.
Then we
were both we both said he was going to be fucking champion. No, but I remember writing that article. I was like, no doubt, and I was actually delighted to hear you say it. Then, like, I don't know, we were kind of saying.
I never said. What are you talking about?
You fucking leave it. So copying my false trends here, but no, but he did like. That's the frustrating thing, I think, with Kevin Holland, Shawnee, isn't it? It's like you do see these flashes of brilliance, but it's not a skill set thing with Kevin Holland. It's been a mentality thing for all of his kind of UFC tenure, really.
It's 100%. So what I was about to say was, like, if you're to look at him like 3 years, and let me just pull up the record here, because if you're like 3 years ago, right? So he'd come through and he'd beat Oliveira and Means, and then he went to do the Shamaev thing and all that, right? But he'd lost to Vittori and Brunson. But if you look at him at that point, you're thinking, right, okay, he was moving to AKA, wasn't he, and doing a few things. And at that point, you would have said, you go forward 3 years, right? And you'll think Holland might have had, 6 or 7 fights. Maybe he won 5 or 6 of them, or whatever. And he's going to have this big fight that'll, like, put him on to the next level. What I actually think here is he has a fight that if he loses, he'll almost be gone from the conversation. And that's a very damning thing to. And he'll get more fights in the UFC and everything like that. But you to have one win against Michael Oleksiejczuk, and then lose to MVP before that, Jack Della Maddalena, and if you're to lose to Dolidze as well, for someone as talented as Kevin Holland, I think it's just a sign of where his career has gone in a real negative direction over the last few years.
And that's by his own doing, really. I mean, it's like, I think if he got his mentality right, it's kind of like what you were trying to say is that we were always expecting to see that breakout performance from Kevin Holland, but we've never got to see it for one reason or another. It seems to me that he's a very good hammer, but not a very good nail. He's a guy who gets on the front foot, and if he remains on the front foot, I think he builds in confidence, and that's where you see the best Kevin Holland. But the problem with that is when you come up against that elite level competition, they have the ability to kind of storm through momentum that you may be able to kind of possess in fights. And I think, for that lack of that mentality for Kevin Holland, I think that we'll never see that breakout performance. I think if he was able to nail it down, that, you know, he could have a late surge towards the title charge. But at this stage, I agree with you, Sean. You just don't think it's going to happen. You know, I think this is a good opportunity for Dulidze to kind of trust himself up the division here. You know, he picked up a good win over who was it in his last fight? It was Anthony Smith, wasn't it? Yeah, and that was at light heavyweight. Looked good in that fight too. Obviously lost to Imamov in a close fight, but I think he has the ability here. And stylistically, if he needs to fight smartly. I think, you know, if he does what you maybe think he's going to do and try and stand and bang with Holland here, well, then you're playing right into Kevin Holland's hands. I think you close the distance, you take him down, and I think, look at Kevin Holland has great jiu-jitsu, but he has shit wrestling, and he's not going to get up off his back, and that's been the problem of Kevin Holland's career so far, and I think it'll be another problem on Saturday night, Johnny. Any final thoughts, or shall we move on?
The only final thought I would have was, even when you had a sparkle like in the Jacare fight with that unbelievable win, I never fully kind of...
It was the ghost of Jacare, right? Wasn't it?
He never followed up on it properly, but
no.
It's you know, he's also one of those ones you'd always have a little bit of hope for. You know, that's why people like him, I think.
Yeah, maybe that's why maybe some of our frustrations lie as well. Is that, you know, I think I might have said on a previous preview show when we've been talking about Kevin Holland, is that he had to make a decision in his career, and the decision he had to make was he wanted to be an entertaining fighter or he wanted to be a champion level fighter. And I think he's gone down the road of being an entertainment fighter because he's taken fights on short notice and he's taken these chances, but that's not always the best for your career, like,
no.
You know. And
but there's another guy in the car like Alex Hernandez. I think he's a little bit like that as well. Good athlete, party. But then there's like a guy we're talking about MMA archetypes. Well, Johnny Walker, I'd throw him in there. Michel Pereira. But out of all them, Michel Pereira is the only one I think who's actually making a run of it. And he did change up his game an awful lot to be a more normal fighter. Now, he did almost get disqualified by fucking what did he do? Fucking handstanding into a cunt last time out.
Nearly kicked the guy in the head on the ground by doing a backflip on his head. Like, you know, that's
fucking since prevailed.
The guy who made a decision like Kevin Holland did at the time to this cut down to 170 is just not working for me. It's taken away his gas tank. It's taken away his chin. So, you know, you see with a lot of fighters when they finally make the decision, I'm not cutting weight anymore. You look at someone like Michel Pereira, like there's no way he ever should have been cutting down to 170. He's an absolute monster at 185. And, you know, that's kind of a side thought on that. But let's move on to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, your guy, Team Sheehan. Look at the way I'm looking at this fight on paper is that this is potential to be a really, really sad fight, because if Joaquin Buckley goes out there and beats Wonderboy Thompson, I think, you know, I don't know, Buckley just rubs me up the wrong way a little bit. I think just the way he talks, and, you know, although you might, I don't know, he's had a falling out with DC, so you might like him a little bit, Johnny. I'm not too sure. Him and DC being going over and back, big style. So I think it could be an awkward interview inside the cage if Buckley does go out there. But looking for one. Go ahead.
I interviewed Impa Kasanganay a couple of times as well, and he's one of the nicest fellas I've ever interviewed in my life. And it kind of made me dislike Buckley a little bit as well, because he got that big knockout over him. Do you know the famous one? But no, yeah, I know. I don't
do that for himself now, given what happened in that fight. You know what I mean? If you're looking, I know. Look, at Joaquin Buckley has been making a charge up the rankings himself. But we'll talk about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson first. Coming off that loss, UFC 296 against Shavkat Rakhmonov, very unfavorable matchup for him. This one a little bit more favorable in my opinion, but, you know, it's the classic case of what we were talking about with Jose Aldo here. It's the UFC trying to propel Joaquin Buckley using Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's name, and it's also the UFC not giving Wonderboy the stylistic kind of matchup that maybe he wants, because he didn't play ball the time where he refused to fight after his opponent didn't make weight, who was, as we said, Michel Pereira. Totally fair to do that. It was a good topic of conversation at the time. I think he was justified not to take that fight, but it's that unwritten rule in that exists in the UFC. If you don't toe the company line, you're going to be punished for it. And it seems that that's the stage of the of Wonderboy's career we're at right now with these type of matchups. Like, it makes sense in some regards, to be honest. You know, Joaquin Buckley making a charge up the rankings, but, you know, the MVP fight is there for Wonderboy, and I don't know. It's just we're at a weird time in Wonderboy's career right now.
Yeah, there was a place in Wonderboy's career a couple of fights ago where he beat Vicente Luque, he beat Jeff Neal, and you could have found your way into getting him towards a title shot, and they had no interest in doing
They
that.
put him in with Gilbert Burns and then Bilal Muhammad, who just
Yeah.
grappled the shit fuck out of him. So
now that we know what they're doing him, I think the thing about this is, right, so Wonderboy at the moment is 41 years of age. I think this, you said it's going to be sad. I think the sad thing about this is I actually think Buckley could beat him on the feet. Which is, yeah, everyone knows how big of a Wonderboy fan I am, but I don't think Wonderboy is what he used to be. I think he's going to find it very, very difficult against Buckley. And say what you want about Buckley, but he is a big hitter and he's fast and he's very smart as well. One thing I would say about Buckley, maybe not smart outside of the cage, but inside of the cage, I think he's a very, very smart fighter, and I think he'll find ways to get to Wonderboy. And I wouldn't at all be surprised if we saw something. Remember, like the Pettis fight with Wonderboy, where he just kind of caught him with something crazy. I could see that happening here as well, and that might be a very sad way to end it for Wonderboy as a top level fighter.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, hopefully, look, we get to see some flashes of brilliance from Wonderboy, but time is a ticking, and time is no one's friend in mixed martial arts or combat sports in general. Let's flash through real quickly here the prelims card. Very, very briefly, Marina Rodriguez versus Ishman Lushindo. Lushindo, only 22 years of age, getting a good test against a veteran here, Shawnee. Has an interesting potential striking battle here on our midst, but not one that really tickles my fancy too much. I'll get you to share your thoughts in a minute. Ira Pereira versus Cesar Almeida at 185. The guy that you just mentioned, Alexander Hernandez, takes on Austin Hubbard. With Hernandez, Shawnee, it's kind of like yin and yang with him. You don't know what kind of level of performance you're going to get. Sometimes he looks brilliant. Sometimes he looks awful. We're kind of at the awful stage of his career. Only one win in his last 5 for Alex, and that was against Jim Miller. Comes in against Austin Hubbard here, who he came through the Ultimate Fighter, I believe. Got the win against Lee Hammond, didn't he? Am I getting that right? No, that was a different fella. Sorry.
No, yeah, that was Kurt Halaba.
Kurt Halaba. Same, but different.
Yeah.
But
that's why he's quiz world champion, I tell you.
I still love it. Julian Lane was the last person that stepped in when Austin Hubbard picked up a win over him.
Back, bro.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a fight that has potential to be good, but also has a real potential to be shit as well, to be honest.
I like Hernandez. He always goes in there.
He's exciting, win or lose. I'll give him that. He wins spectacularly or he loses spectacularly. So.
Be like Man United, yeah.
Fucking fact. Except, yeah, it's all losing.
Last 4 of his last 5, yeah.
No, we can't even call Man United spectacular now at this stage. They're absolutely dog shit. But I want to stop with Carla Esparza, who's fighting the last fight of her career, #MMA retirements. She goes in there against Tisha Pennington, obviously the wife of Rocky Pennington, who's fighting in the co-main event. They share this camp together, I would assume. But, it's a kind of... I like this matchup because it's 2 veterans, and I'm glad the UFC didn't do what the UFC did and throw Carla Esparza in there with a young, hungry lioness and get her absolutely destroyed on the last fight. I think this is a well matched up fight between 2 kind of legends of the women's mixed martial arts world.
It is. And I saw some people giving out about this not being like on the main card and stuff. Like Carla Esparza, a 2-time UFC champion. Sometimes we do forget that. But look, I don't think it's going to be a classic. I think it's probably going to be a decision, probably a split decision. Tisha Pennington, obviously the former Tisha Torres, I think she's probably a little bit closer to her prime than Esparza is, but I don't think she's at it either. I think Esparza, if I'm not mistaken, had a little child between her last fight and this one, if I'm not mistaken. So, that plays a big part too. I remember Mackenzie Dern speaking about that, with your biology and everything. It's very, very tough, even like making weight and stuff like that. I'm sure it'll be very, very tough as well. But at the same time, I'm sure she'll be very, very well prepared. But Esparza a very good wrestler, but I think she'll find it tough to chase Pennington around, especially if it's a big octagon. And I feel like Pennington might kind of just maybe a few jabs and a few kicks from the outside, and that might be enough to win the decision here. But as I said, a split decision, probably very close.
Yeah, I think the speed advantage that Tisha Torres / Pennington possesses in this fight might do her the world of good. What kind of insanity / awfulness are we going to see when Owen St. Preux takes on Ryan Spann, Shawnee, in the 205-pound division?
So this fight was supposed to happen a while back, and I picked Ryan Spann to win it, and I picked him again this time. But at the same time, you look at OSP, right? He's fucking 41 years of age. He beat Kennedy Njoku in his last fight, and it was only in March this year. Like, he's like, he beat Shogun as well a couple of fights before that. Like, he's not exactly completely gone. But at the same time, if you're Ryan Spann, like, he's lost 3 in a row as well. That's the one thing I was thinking of this, because twice now I've kind of thought about this fight. Spann is the type of guy who comes out and he throws, Superman, that big fucking right hand over the top. But he's only 6 knockouts in 31 fights, and I did it the other way there to make my point look better. But he's a wrestler as well, and he has 12 submissions and 21 wins. I'm like the fucking need.
What's happening with all these stats? You're like fucking. It's like a beautiful mind here tonight on the preview show.
Downloaded the Sherdog data straight in there. But I think because he's lost 3 in a row, I think this will be a more safe one. You'll have to take OSP down, but at the same time, you take OSP down, Ian, what happens?
You take OSP down, and he gets you in the special move that he gets guys in. What's it called, Shawnee? It's the come on.
What is it?
Oh my god!
What's that? Really good. One of the best defensive players in the NFL, Miller. He's playing for the Buffalo Bills now.
Oh, the Von Preux choke. That's what he's going to have. That's what he's going to do. Yeah. I knew it. I was actually going to go back and check the results and see. I had to see the Von Flu choke submission, and I would have definitely hit it in there. But you almost had me. You almost had me. You almost had me in the first half there.
I think you had me in the first half. I think Spann will win it, and I think he'll probably win the decision.
I think so too. And look at it's kind of a trend of this preview show. It's kind of it's a fight that you give to Ryan Spann if he's lost the last 3 in a row. It's a kind of very winnable fight. The Dirty Bird is back in action. The first fight on the card. I'm surprised to see him back. If I remember correctly, Shawnee, and he lost very badly by knockout in his last fight.
Yes,
and it was a scary knockout. He's decided to come back for one more. He got vicious, took a vicious uppercut to off Uros Medic, comes in against a hard-hitting Court McGee as well. And I think the way, Court McGee is a little bit long on the tooth as well, but his body of work in recent years has been much better than Tim Means, to be honest. Although, Court McGee has lost a lot of his last recent fights, last 3, if in particular. Tim Means only 1 win in his last 5 too. So both these guys walking the plank towards retirement, I would imagine, and the loser of this one might be the final step on that plank, Shawnee.
I'll be honest. My pick of the winner of this fight is who's less shot, and I think it's Court McGee. I was surprised to see that the Dirty Bird is the favorite here. Like, Court didn't look good against Alex Morono last time, but Alex Morono is a good fighter, and he had minutes. He had moments in that fight, should I say? Whereas the Dirty Bird got absolutely fucking sparked out. Now, he did beat Andre Filo in 2023, which is a very good win, but he did not look good at all in that last fight. And you never know, maybe it was very much an off day, but I like Court McGee here as the underdog. I think there might be a bit of wrestling in that play as well, and I could see him getting the win, but probably good matchmaking as well at the same time. Like, we had Robert Whiteford against Roger Huerta last week. This is something sort of similar to, the seniors tour.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, I never mind those kind of fights too. We kind of got it when we talked about it with Carla Esparza and Tisha Pennington. I think it's a similar enough one for Tim Means and Court McGee. And that's been the preview show for UFC 307. I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm always excited, like I said at the start, to watch Alex Bahia. I think, we rarely get kind of flashes in the pan like this anymore in mixed martial arts, where Alex Pereira has kind of stormed in and took the MMA world by storm. And he is a legit superstar. He's a big news fighter right now. Up at the top corner, if you're watching the YouTube channel, you can click on that, or you can scan that QR code, and it will bring you straight to the SevereMMA Patreon account, where you get some top level podcasts each and every week for just €5 a month. You can also sign up for the yearly subscription, Shawnee, which is what, 52?
I got 10% off, yeah, so around 52 quid or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, tenner offers.
And we think we're averaging around 4 or 5 podcasts a week right now, and that will go up. Look, I know I listened to you on the Q&A this week, Shawnee, and you said you feel, even though you're a very hard worker in mixed martial arts, that you're slacking. I actually kind of feel the same. It's been a very busy period, I know, for you, and it's been a very busy period for me. I'm trying to bang out as much content as I can. I'm hoping things are going to die down now in the next couple of weeks and months, and I'm hoping to kind of join you for a few more podcasts and get some more interviews done. But sometimes, life gets in the way, Shawnee, and we do the best that we can with all of our coverage of mixed martial arts. But over on the Patreon, Theo helps us out, Paul helps us out. We've got lots of great stuff over there. Head on over, support Severe MMA, and we really appreciate it if you did that. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, give us a follow on Twitter, at IO'NeillMMA, at Sean Sheehan Bah on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it. That has the preview show. Take care, enjoy the fights this weekend. Theo and I will be back on Monday to break down this card in its entirety, and we'll have Browner back to preview next UFC card. I think we're heading in for 9 UFC cards in a row now. Better buckle up. We're going